Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer!
Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it!
And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
It's New Year's Eve, everybody, and all I can say is, blow the whistle, ref! This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, I think blow up, ref, is what I would say. This year can't end fast enough, and thankfully, by the time you're listening to this, it may be over already. So all I want to do is just say a very happy, healthy new year to you and your family, a better 2021 ahead. Even if you had a half-decent 2020, I still hope that it's a better 2021, but I think for a lot of us, safe to say, 2020 will not be a year we'll be looking back on with much fondness from a life standpoint or maybe even a football standpoint. But the year is going out decently, dare I tempt fate, win over Chelsea, win over Brighton, and we are here to discuss it diligently on New Year's Eve. Paul, you can find him on Twitter at Pause in My Pants. Happy New Year, my friend.
Woohoo!
And Clive, you can find him on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Happy New Year, my friend.
Hello.
Notice, dear listener, that I have wished both of these gentlemen a Happy New Year, and they neither of them wished me a Happy New Year in return.
Oh, sorry, Happy New Year. We couldn't hear your internet's a bit dodgy. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, that excuse works most of the time, and you know what? Yeah. I'll allow it.
So Elliot, we're into the criticism part of the pod. I was just thinking before I came on this. You know the way over at the Arscast, Andrew and James have those nice little chats at the start, and Andrew asks James how things are going and stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we never have that. And I had this dream last night, right? Mm. And you and I had this WhatsApp chat. Mm. Did you see it, Clive?
We had a long WhatsApp chat about Hector Bellerin and
158 unread messages.
Aubameyang.
Yeah. So I'm minding my own business last night, and Elliot starts up with this Aubameyang's contract thing again. And 15 minutes later, I am fucking lying on the sofa, clasping my chest from heart pain. Mm. And it's just, I'm fucking hell. And I go to bed about 10 minutes later, and I end up having this dream where I'm in an assassins group, but they've decided they need to terminate me. And Frank Lampard chases me around this bazaar, James Bond style, this chase through bazaar for an hour, trying to stab me to death. So yeah, thanks, Elliot.
Well,
thanks for that.
I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag before the new year, Paul, but I've just about inked a new sponsorship deal with a blood pressure medication company. So this is all just a setup to help sell product, as is the podcast generally. So now that is out of the way, and I will tell you that while the Arscast does have a nice, amicable introductory conversation, it is
Andrew is lovely to James.
Yes, but we have a deep disdain for one another, and so there is no need for such pleasantries. The only thing holding us together is the fiber of the conversation about Arsenal that we just about tolerate. And thank you for tolerating this long intro. We had a big chat ahead of time about how this was going to be a quick 45 minutes, and out we go because it's New Year's Eve, and we are now roughly 4 minutes into the podcast, having not even started the podcast. So with that having been said, Clive, I will let you start the podcast. And it's interesting, right? I think the thing about football is you can zoom really deeply into a game or really far out over a season and wind up with wildly different pictures that you get, an analysis that you're inevitably going to do. So the reason I bring that up is that this is a game where you can choose to focus on the 20 minutes from halftime to the goal and see phenomenal green shoots of recovery continuing, silver linings everywhere, fantastic connection and interplay and counterattacking football. Or you can choose to zoom into the first half and worry that some of the signs of attacking challenges still exist. You can zoom into the period after the goal and question whether we defended properly. I think it is an interesting game in terms of the way you may want to perceive the season. And so I will simply ask you, in looking at this game, I probably know the answer in terms of which segment you want to emphasize, but do you have a sense of why the big change occurred, the challenges we faced in the first half versus what I thought was really phenomenal dynamic attacking for the first 20 minutes of the second half?
Yeah, I think it's this. I love football. I just love.
God, I hope so. You talk about it a lot.
What I love about it is you turn up, right? You turn up, you prepare for a game, you get your players, you pick your players, and you have the last game in your mind, and then the next game starts, and you got a new problem. Right? What is a new problem? Where does this come from? So the first game was almost like we started off quite bright, a little bit of legacy from the previous Chelsea game. And then we settled into what I call an academy game. When you watch academy football, I spent a lot of time watching academy football, it almost becomes a pattern play, a passing show. And so we all passed around and we all looked good. We popped it in, popped it out, went around, dinked it down the line. They got the ball, passed it around, dinked it in, popped it in the middle, upset, dinked it down the line, give it away. And we just did this for about half an hour until eventually we can see some chances. And sometimes you can get lulled into a game that you don't want to play. And you forget to play. You end up playing what's in front of you. You end up playing the opposition. You end up playing the moment. I love the soft factors of football and how one day you can be amazing. 5 minutes you can be amazing. The next 5 minutes you're not. So why is that? Why does that happen? And you have to remember there's an opposition. Well, it's like going to a boxing fight. You think you're good, you think you've done your training, and someone smacks you right on the chin, you think, bloody hell, what do I do now? Do you know what I mean? And it becomes how you react to these moments. And what I always look for in a game, and particularly watching Arsenal, I look for our reaction to the problems that we're being faced with. And I thought we reacted really well to, I wouldn't say a problem, but just a game state. And game states for everything for me. What's happening now? Why are we doing certain things? And if you looked at the game, we just, compared to Chelsea game, we just went back to our, not lack of confidence self, but our passive selves. We didn't quite take what was on offer for us. And we felt a bit confident. But to be confident, we thought, we'll go and get that bit later. We won't play that ball through. We'll get that one in 5 minutes. No. If the opportunity is there to pass. You know what I mean? And I felt that was also the team talk. The opportunity is there to pass it. Pass it to the guy in the most dangerous position. Don't mess about. One touch, pass. Because from there, the movement starts, the rotation starts. And then you think, this is easy. We look so much better. So what's changed? We're just doing what's obvious. Do it quicker, faster, more intent. And then everything else will come back. And what really pleased me is that whoever decided it, whether it was the players or the management, they weren't accepting that crap for the first half. They weren't accepting the go back to where we were. We've got a new level of confidence and we're going to play. That's what we did after half time, and it just sort of changed.
I do think that there's some instructive stuff in the way Brighton approached this game and in terms of why we had a good period when we did, because I thought it was a pretty weak Brighton lineup, and it was obviously a first half that just kind of went by without much incident. I think everybody knows by now we had one shot in that half. But Brighton really didn't have a big attacking intent. You then fast forward to the second half, and during the period that we would consider dominant, and it was dominant. I mean, we had 11 shots in the game. From halftime to the goal, we had 9 shots, 3 on target, 1 big chance, right? But here's what's interesting during that period. They had 24 attacking third passes to our 15. They had a lot more territory during that period than they had in the first half. And I thought they felt that there was something in the game for them. And they came at us a bit. And we really did an effective job turning the ball over and creating transition opportunities and really just moving the ball with the right tempo and directness when we got it to counterattack. I think one thing that has disappointed me about this team in the past is when we've had opportunities to counter, the precision hasn't been there. But in Smith Rowe and Martinelli and Saka, you saw a different level of quality to the way the counterattacking passes were played. I also thought that Bellerin and Tierney on each side were contributors to that as well. So I think that really made a big difference. And Paul, I think, as excited as we've been to see Martinelli come back, these are a lot of minutes being put into his legs real quick, back from a long layoff. And I thought he looked a little less bright in his movement, in the first half in this game. But the player that really stood out, I think, is Bukayo Saka. And, it's funny, we didn't talk about him as much in the Chelsea podcast, not because he wasn't deserving of it, but because the Smith Rowe and Martinelli talking points were so important and so relevant. But I think we absolutely have to give Saka his due here and make sure that we spend a good amount of time just talking about what a superior talent this guy is. I mean, ultimately, between Saka and Martinelli, you have the kind of young talent, two of them, that most clubs are lucky to get once in a generation, in my view. So this was a game where he played largely on the right. And I think when he first started to play there, we had a lot of questions about it. Didn't seem like a natural fit necessarily.
I'd actually say most people said that it was a bad idea to try and play him on the right after they saw him for a game or two. Yeah, I saw it as an investment that might pay off.
Well, and to be fair, I think the logic argument would also say, just look, we have a guy on the right that we are invested in hoping succeed. But setting that aside, I mean, my point was to say that what he's showing now is he is a player that wherever you put him on the pitch, his quality and his involvement in the game really is going to elevate the team. So I just thought this was a phenomenal Saka performance. Obviously, the turn and run and pass to get the goal that wins the game is going to take all the headlines, but there were just so many things he did well in this game. So do you want to sort of expand upon just my generic praising for this special player?
Well, I think that's right. In the first match against Chelsea, it was like he wasn't the new shiny thing. Yeah. We had two other new shiny things, so we had three of them. And we took him for granted a little bit, but he was excellent in that. And in this, he was excellent, and he made the goal. And I mean, he sprints most of the length of the pitch, and you forget just how fast he is. He's only got those little legs, and he doesn't even seem to be moving them that quickly. But even with the ball at his feet, I mean, the guy travels. And when you talk about the counter, I think you really hit on something in the second half, in that Brighton needed 3 points. And like, they're at home, they're desperate for points, and Arsenal rolls up there, and we weren't too impressive in the first half. So I was like, I think we were all puzzling a little bit. What was the difference between the first half and the second half? Because it was so starkly different. We had 20 minutes here where we got to really go at them. And I think they kind of needed 3 points, and they did open up a little bit, and they did think these Arsenal guys, it's fragile. We get at them. And the way the first half ended, I mean, early on we had Leno juggling the ball. That was pretty impressive. Getting away with that one. And El Neni flirting with danger a couple of times just before halftime. They must have really felt this game was on for them. And they just gave us that little bit more space. And counter-attacking is the thing. We didn't have an opportunity to counter-attack in the first half. We've been often referred to as a good counter-attacking team. And I've always, I think for years now, I've questioned that. When you had Ozil and Alexis at their prime, maybe. But that was kind of about it. We're not actually very good at counter-attacking. We make a lot of poor technical
final ball
choices.
errors. I couldn't agree with you more. I think people look at the names on the pitch and assume that that's a counter-attacking team, but it never really was.
Yeah, it never really was. And it's Arsenal, so we must be good at this. But we really weren't. And these guys, it's like the fucking red arrows. Do they have the red arrows over where you are, Elliot? Mm-hmm. But anyway.
Lots of red arrows, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, they got those interweaving aircraft shooting, flying overhead. And like those guys sprinting forward, it's a whole new dimension where, we don't need to have possession to be effective. And hopefully we'll get to a point where we're actually effective when we have possession and we can weave our patterns and it doesn't come down to crosses. But yeah, that 20 minutes in the second half where you saw Smith Rowe in particular, I think, and Saka building an understanding together, and also in terms of moving around the pitch and creating space for each other and giving the opposition different looks to try and figure out. It was very, very exciting, but you can't, apparently at the moment, we're all a bit leggy and you can't do that for 90 minutes. Well, we couldn't do it for the 45 minutes of the second half, probably leggy or not. We just don't seem to do games, let alone halves, but you got to crawl, walk, run. So it's definitely something to build on. I got excited about that 10 minutes against Burnley when we looked like we might actually have played football for the first time in eons. So I should be very excited about 20 minutes where I agree with you. They had a lot of possession, and that kind of played to us in the end because apparently we might be good at counter-attacking.
Yeah, I have to tell you, like, I mean, So like it's hard for me because I want to be balanced. I want to look at these two games together and see the signs of a way forward where we can be better. And I don't want to over-index some of the things that we've done in this game because I still think, or in these two games, because I still think we have seen a little bit of a challenge converting dangerous possession into chances and chances into goals. Because, I mean, the Chelsea game, I thought we played really well. The goals we got are from a penalty, a free kick, and a cross. I mean, obviously a brilliant goal that he meant to do is what I meant to say. And then in this game, one shot in the first half, one shot in the period after the goal, which I have no problem with. And then a nice flurry of good counterattacking football where we did get some shots and did score a goal. So like, I see the shoots of recovery and I'm excited by them. I think the next step is to confirm this recovery by showing that we can consistently convert dangerous possession into goals. But a reason I think we're making a recovery at all is quite clearly the influence of these young players. Martinelli, ESR, Saka, and it's a phenomenal foundation on which we can build something. I mean, if you want to have any faith in this project being special going forward, that trio is where you would start having that faith. Now, maybe you throw in players like Tierney and Gabriel and, you know, I mean,
Bellerin.
if you want to, well, I would say Bellerin, and that's a conversation we can maybe have down the line, but I went into the Bellerin mines on Twitter and I have come out with whatever you get in a mine that is bad.
Well, that's why I'm taking these arrows, because I know you've had some lumps mentioning his name.
slings.
But if you're an attacking team, Bellerin starts to make all kinds of sense as a right fullback.
Look,
if you're not, well,
it's tricky, Paul, right? Because, like, I mean, I think, and again, don't want to have the debate right now, I think he's an elite attacking fullback. Some people disagree with that. I fully acknowledge he is a fullback who has positioning issues and one-on-one defensive issues, and like there is a question of how much balance you can get right and wrong there. But Clive, I think if we're going to be excited about that trio, then the obvious concern becomes the trio of other players who are in positions in that part of the pitch that are committed to big money, committed to long contracts. Now, the Pepe one I'm not as worried about because Pepe is a player who, if it isn't going to work out, you sell him, you move on. I mean, you're going to take a loss, but you get him off the books. And it's sad to see it end that way if it has to, but so be it. Alternatively, he's still young enough and talented enough that we can make something there. The Willian and Aubameyang things are slightly different. That's £500,000 a week of 31, 32-year-old players who are here for a while. And if the project isn't going to get off the ground, you could argue that those would be the sort of anchors holding it down. Now, with Willian, I don't have a lot of optimism. Aubameyang is a good player who we've seen contribute great things to us as recently as last season. What I would ask you, though, is what you thought of this performance, because it is the first time, and realize he's just back from injury and that can play a part in it, but like he just felt a little clunky to me. And the funny thing is the miss isn't the problem. The miss is the good thing. That's Aubameyang getting into vintage Aubameyang positioning, making good contact and the keeper making a good stop. That I actually like. It's the other stuff. Some misplaced passes, some runs that didn't come off. The time when he tried to turn that big clunky Brighton guy whose name is escaping me and didn't win the foot race with him. Webster. Yeah, that was a little concerning. Webster. It was Webster. Burn is another issue altogether. But and we will tell you a little bit later on about how not to wind up with burning or chafing or any of that stuff. But that's not now. So Clive, I mean, do you share my concern? Again, I'm a worrier. That's why my friends call me Whiskers. But do you share my concern that Aubameyang, now it's not just, the team isn't playing well. I mean, he was in a team with three players who are connecting well. He was not at their level, as weird as it sounds to say in this game. So is it a concern that you have? That you share?
Yeah, obviously, I learned from you actually about this Aubameyang thing and whether we should sign him or not. And I was very much of the opinion that we should, not just for his football, but the fact that he played multiple positions, his physical shape, his emotional impact on the club. And yeah, I was very much on board with it. Willian and others, I'm not so sure. I tried to justify it to myself, thinking he'd play 10, and that didn't happen. And I'm thinking, well, that's a stupid deal. And we know more now than we did back then. So let's just forget that one, shall we? But Aubameyang,
I wish we could.
Well, you know what, Elliot? I know you keep saying we're labelled with it. We're blunt. We've got him arrested, but we have got him under contract and we can move him. I know we may have to do some work there, free or subsidised, whatever, but He's a contracted player. I never despair too much with that. As long as we do it, as you say, fail fast. As long as we don't hang him hanging around blocking pathways for 3 years, which he never was for me. When you sign that player, there's an exit plan. There's already rumours of him going in January. So I don't worry about him. I worry about the Ramses walking out for free. I worry about Alexis Sanchez down to 6 months. That's what I used to worry about because,
fair.
I just don't worry about these contracted players. There might be bad deals, but they're contracted deals.
They're different kinds of waste, though, right? Like one is spending that you're not getting back, and the other is an asset that you don't monetize. So there's slightly,
I'm not going to justify the stupidity of those deals and the fact that we
Sunk
felt
cost,
the need to even do them in the first place,
Right,
which is a much deeper podcast, right? So Aubameyang, what I will say for a sprinter who very rarely picks up muscle injuries, that's because he knows his body, right? He's an elite athlete, never misses training, never misses games. He's had a calf pop, right, or a minor calf. And the first thing he'll be doing is, okay, I'm playing, but I got to look after it. And so I will give him the benefit of the doubt. And I felt he warmed into the game. I thought he looked better the more the game went on, the more he got confidence in his body. And that missed chance, the first one, when Saka done his lovely De Bruyne sweeping cross, I thought, goal. But he couldn't do much more than that.
No, that's vintage Aubameyang.
That was a crying
good.
shame, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was a crying shame that didn't go in.
I thought it was brilliant. And if you watch his movement when that goal was on, it was back to top speed. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The other one where he done his community shield, shake and bake, top corner, he just towed it, got there too soon. He snatched it and he just towed it rather than get the curl on it. So I'm smiling to myself now because I'm now seeing the good time player come back. I heard Alan Davies call them, we got a few joiner inners, and I so agree with that. And it's these young kids that have made him think, I better join in. And so I'm not so worried. I think he's going to come back. The interesting thing, and we spoke to it on the instant reaction that you didn't bother turning up for, Elliot, was...
oh, no, I still made sure I got my 30 seconds in at the beginning. Don't worry.
Oh, you certainly did. Right? But Tim Theory, right? And he when he first said it, I had to take some while to process it, about, having Aubameyang and Martinelli play together. And it is something that's not quite solved, and we all know it needs to be solved. I don't think it's a big problem, because I saw some rotation in this game. I think that this is what we need to be thinking about more, is rotation and movement, because these guys are quite intelligent now. We've lifted our intelligence index with these three youngsters playing together, and they force rotation because Saka pops up on the left, sweeps it for Aubameyang's chance. He pops up on the right. Smith Rowe, I'm starting to look at stats zone again. The reason why, because we've now got combinations again. We've now got intelligence on the pitch. I'm looking at, so why is Bellerin played well? And you look at the pass combinations, the top ones is to Smith Rowe. Smith Rowe's there helping him out, making sure he doesn't run down dark alleyways and run into and get dispossessed, have to run back 30 yards and then gets tired, then get popped off when he's near his goal. There's always a cause and effect for why someone's doing better. And Smith Rowe is absolutely there for Xhaka and Bellerin in the last two games as top pass receiving from those guys, which means he's helping out his teammates with his availability. And so we're starting, if I'm Arteta now, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at all these players, I'm thinking, in my mind now, I want to look for the best partnerships. Because this team has lacked partnerships so badly. And I'm seeing some partnerships form. And I want to try to find as many partners as I can, because that will allow me to select better teams as we need to rotate going forward. And I think Aubameyang, we're going to find out who his partners are. And he has to work and make these partnerships work, because these young lads are doing that for him. They really are. They're making their partnerships work. And so, yeah, I'm not as worried as you.
Well, I'm worried.
But I do absolutely respect that worry. I do not dismiss it at all. I think he's got work to do, but I do see some green shoots in that last game. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, no, well, two points I want to make about that. One is, again, the binary of they're great or they're shit doesn't work here. When I'm saying I'm worried about Aubameyang, I'm not saying I'm worried that Aubameyang is now worse than Yaya Sanogo. I'm saying I'm worried that Aubameyang is not able to hit the level anymore of a player you give £300,000 a week to. And this is why I've said in the past, you don't give a player a contract for what they did before. You give a player a contract to pay them for what you think they will do going forward. And when you say, here's 3 years at £300,000 a week, what you're saying is, I believe you will play like the best striker in the league for the next few seasons, or at least the early part of your contract. I mean, sometimes contracts are backloaded with some bad years, fine. But the problem is, I look at him and I say, is he able to play at a super elite best striker in the league level right now? And I'm not sure I see a guy who's consistently going to be able to do that for us now. Does that mean he's terrible and unusable? Not at all. I think the interesting problem, though, is there are certain players in your squad who are so good you just pick them, period. Saka has made himself a guy you just pick. Even if you hit a bad run of form, you don't bench them. Aubameyang was a guy the last couple seasons. In form, out of form, doesn't matter. Put him in the team, he's got to play. I think, Paul, that you can make an argument that with ESR, Martinelli, and Saka being an important trio that have to play as much as they can without overdoing it for health reasons, that now that fourth position between Lacazette and Aubameyang is a conversation again. Now, that's not a place we wanted to be. It's not why we gave Aubameyang this big money. We gave him this big money to just be the guy at the point of the spear who is undeniably great. But I do think that that's a conversation now, that Lacazette has thrust himself into that conversation. I'm not saying by playing, again, this is why there's nuance here. I'm not saying Lacazette has done that by playing like peak original Ronaldo, but he's been better than Aubameyang over a short period now. So do you think that it is fair to suggest that with that trio sorted, and again, they can't play every game, but we know we want to use them, that Lacazette has a shout for that fourth role, that striker role, in exchange for Aubameyang? That there may be games where we should, by choice, not by requirement, start without Aubameyang and with Lacazette instead.
So I think your initial premise is feckin' nuts, right? But we won't spend too much time debating on this. Like, Aubameyang,
I'm open to hearing
said,
what it is. Which nuts premise are you picking on?
Apparently a absolute starter for the last two seasons, but a couple of months later he's not. Now, the rest of it I'm good with, right? We have three other players who put themselves in the frame, leaving only one other spot available. Let me just ask you something.
Do you think, based on the form he's displayed this entire season, which is not a short sample size, I mean, look, football's a season at a season time, do you think that he's opened himself up to the suggestion that he's not a first name on the team sheet kind of guy? I mean, that's my premise, is that at some point you got to go with what the information is telling you. And in my view, the information is telling me Aubameyang's not a write his name in pen on the team sheet player at this point.
Yeah, he's out of form. So right at this moment, sure. But that's true of any player who loses form. So
sure, totally fair. I guess where we differ then is that I don't know that I think he's losing form. I think he has declined a bit. Now, again, not to being terrible, but to the point where he's no longer so super elite that I just try to play him back into form. I think this is a player who's now good, but maybe not great.
Sure. And you might be right. And
you disagree, which is fair.
Well, no, I don't disagree. I'm saying there's no fucking evidence for it apart from he's out of form. So we'll have to.
Well, you know my evidence, right? I mean, I would point you to the last couple seasons of data.
But you said he was a starter without doubt last season and the season before, and you had those stats then, right? And he scored that goal in the FA Cup just a couple of months ago. And had he banged this goal in against Brighton, we'd be all excited about him again. I know you wouldn't have lost your concerns about it, but we, the collective we, would be like, oh, he's back.
So,
and he might well
for the record,
be.
I would not.
You might be right.
Okay,
yeah. But you might be right.
Mm-hmm.
And I might agree with you with a much, much larger sample size. For now, all I can say is I'm going to put it down to form because we created nothing for the last couple of months. So to hammer him for A, not scoring anything, and B, being out of form, that was always Aubameyang. You don't give him any service, he's not going to generate, he's not Eden Hazard. He's not going to take it from the halfway line, beat four people, put them on their arse and bury one. And even Eden Hazard likes a bit of service too, but Aubameyang doesn't do anything without service. So anyway, that to your point, which was, is he an automatic starter right now? Obviously not, because his form's maybe in the toilet. Maybe he's the kind of guy who shakes shit off, as soon as he starts getting
well,
service,
if you've been in the toilet, you may wind up needing to shake shit off. So that's a fair point.
Yeah, and speaking of unflushable turds, Sead Kolasinac is gone.
Yeah, we've loaned him, by the way, to Schalke, and you know, I think he deserves a little credit because if the rumors are true, he's given up a big wedge of his wages to go there. Schalke will eat the rest of his wages for the rest of the season, so he will get to play. He will make less money, but he will play football. And I mean, look, I am never a believer that a player should have to give up the money that they contractually have a right to receive, but I think it takes a lot of character on his part to have done that. So I wish him well. He needed to move on, and he has. Yeah. So, Paul, continue your assault on my viewpoint, please.
Yeah, so I think there is merit to your point, and in particular because Lacazette may be. It's not just Aubameyang who'll benefit from extra service. Lacazette will do well with runners who run past him. Like those three lads running around Lacazette start to make him and his kind of 9.5 role make a lot more sense. And like he's the guy. Aubameyang's goal should have been a goal. Now, he probably did everything he has done every other time and it goes in the net. But Lacazette really makes something of that. We chatted about it at the time on the Instant Reaction podcast. I'm not sure we gave him enough credit there. I mean, he really does something with that shot to get it in the corner. And so, like, that's a striker who might be actually in form with the shot like that. And these kind of overlapping runners, this creativity, these guys using space, getting in behind. We've now got three players who'll run beyond Lacazette. You know, there's definitely a short-term argument that it might be Lacazette who makes more sense as the starter. But, you know, I need to see some actual evidence that Aubameyang's kind of going further off his cliff before I get too... am I concerned? Yes, because of the risk, because of what we put into him. But I don't have the evidence to take me away from my what I think is a reasonable expectation that he'll be about as good as he was last year, where he should have been Golden Boot if Vardy hadn't got so many bloody penalties. And I know his XG is a little off, but I'm you know, again, we didn't create that much last year or the year before compared to what we should be doing. So I'm hopeful. And until proven otherwise, I'm going to assume Aubameyang can get back to about the levels of last year and the year before. Some year he's going to have a cliff. I look at that guy running around the pitch, and I look at that guy against Brighton in the second half, and I'm like, yep, no, he's basically fully there. And my gut says, hey, maybe we've got another 2 years out of him. I was against the deal in principle, but I understood why we did it, because we're so bad. We'd be so bad at getting a replacement striker. I could understand why.
No, I get you.
Arteta wanted this guy for the next couple of years.
I get you, and like, I will say that I've been sort of looking at the data and looking at the age and saying there's some alarm bells here. And I watched him this season, and for the most part, I've said, man, he still looks like Aubameyang, maybe just a sulking Aubameyang, but mostly looks like him. Yeah. I thought in this game there was some clunkiness, and again, he's just come back from injury. Maybe the legs aren't really fresh. You got to get the rigor mortis out, as Clive's been talking about. So I think that is definitely something there. It's something to keep an eye on. And again, to be clear, still a very good player. Will he maintain the super elite level that we have paid for and that we could really use at the striker position for this deal to work out? I mean, that remains to be seen. I'm going to contradict my own point, though, and say I still think he's a player who I would be choosing ahead of Lacazette, even in this down form, because I still believe in terms of getting into good, dangerous positions and getting you goals, especially with these players around him. We need to see if that can happen for him with more games with ESR, Martinelli, and Saka. So I do want to talk a little bit about ESR, maybe a bit about the defending, and sort of talk briefly about where the season goes from here and the way the table's looking, because it's really an interesting time. We can maybe even touch on some transfer rumors all in a quick 20-25 minutes before we wrap up this pod. But before we do that, I mean, look, we are talking about what it takes to be super elite. We are talking about what it takes not to suffer a decline as you get older and to maintain your best. And I think we can agree that keeping yourself well-groomed in your private area is one way to just stay super elite for 2021. that this is a new year, and we want to throw off the burdens and the downside of 2020. We want to throw off that old, decrepit year and start with a new, fresh, happy year. And so I think a way you can do that is to shave off the sort of old parts of yourself that have lived 2020 with you and start afresh, start anew. And of course, with the Lawnmower 3.0 from Manscaped, you can do that. Now, I joke. It is funny because I am mostly just very awkward and uncomfortable talking about shaving your privates, but it's something we do. It is. And there's a couple ways you do it. You get in the shower, you grab that razor that's been there since maybe 2019, and you just keep using it. And you keep wondering why it's pulling and it's doing bad stuff to you and it's just generally unpleasant, or you just don't do it at all because you dread the thing and you're scared of it. Or you can get the Lawnmower 3.0. So wet, dry. So right in the shower, no problem. Comes with a guard. You can use it on eyebrows. You can use it on chest. You can use it on sideburns. I mean, you name it. But when you're going to use it in more delicate areas, it has ceramic blades. It has an absolute phenomenal way of doing the job without ever nicking or cutting or pulling or tugging or any of those things. And like, I realize that sometimes when we talk about pulling and tugging associated with that area, it's not a negative, but in this case, I mean it as a negative. I will try to wrap this up quickly as it is getting worse and worse as it goes on. But the thing is actually really good. I mean, so it comes with a little beautiful stand that you can set it in and charge it. And I haven't put it in that thing in like 3 weeks. And yeah, it's still going. The battery lasts forever. It's wet, dry. The ceramic blades are fantastic, and you can use it all over the place. So you're going to have to do this anyway. This is a product you can use, and it gives you a chance to use that magical promo code ArsenalVision and get 20% off and free shipping. So start 2021 by shaving off the detritus of 2020 with the Lawnmower 3.0 from Manscaped. Manscaped.com, ArsenalVision is your promo code. Manscaped.com, ArsenalVision promo code, get 20% off and free shipping. Do it, shave it off, get rid of it all. Fresh, so when these lockdowns end, you can just run into the street and take your pants off. It's what we should all do. I plan on it. Well, not if they end soon because it's very cold out. And you know what happens when you step out in the cold as a man. So I'll do it in the summer, is my promise. Anyway, let's move on. So Clive, having set aside what was, I thought, professionally done and not awkward at all, ad break, let's talk about Smith Rowe. I think it's interesting because sometimes you need a 10 out of 10 player to elevate a team. And sometimes you need a player who isn't necessarily a 10 out of 10, but who fits the role that he's being given. And so I bring this up because, like, we've tried Lakazette as a 9/10. We've tried Willian there. We've tried all different sorts of ways to attack that position. And then you put Smith Rowe in there, who is more naturally gifted at occupying the space between the lines and being a playmaker and a connector. And what do you know? It looks so much better and so much more natural. And I don't even think he's hit 10 out of 10 level yet. I mean, he looks really talented. He's 20 years old, and I think he will just improve as he plays more. But just the sheer fact of having someone who understands that space and where to be and how to distribute on time, right weight, right tempo, it makes all the difference in the world to me. So do you feel that there's more to come from Smith Rowe and that simply his characteristics as a player have made a big difference in terms of how we access the final third and the space between the lines?
Yeah, he surprised me actually, and I know about him, and I've seen him play. I've watched him lots of times, playing for England, particularly England youth teams, and for Huddersfield, and I've seen him play for Arsenal. He played a lot of times for Arsenal pre-season, etc. So he's not new, but for this team, he is like just demonstrating what we've missed. And we spoke earlier about partnerships, relationships, and he's just creating them everywhere, and he's just making everyone better. And I love players that do that. You get good players that play, but some players play for themselves. And this guy is the sort of player that other players would love to play with. And, like I said earlier, you look at his combinations, how he's helping out his defenders. And, I look for that a lot, particularly fullbacks. When they get the ball, they normally get pressed a lot. So you need fullbacks to be good in possession. And so I'm always looking for the exit plan when the ball goes out to them, because we use them, we push them up high, they get the ball, centre-back split and the fullbacks are high. So that's their obvious pressing target. So I look for those connections, inside. And he's there. He's there all the time for both sides. And that means he's tracking side to side. When he gets the ball to his feet, one thing I look for is how they use, I call it their internal space, their own space. So what he does is he backs away when defenders have the ball. He backs away, backward running. And the ball goes into his feet. And I always say to players, is like, the ball's come through a tunnel, and that tunnel you own. You know it's free. And he goes back into his space. Then he turns around. So they call it touch. So you go touch back into space you just left, then touch, go another side. And you watch him, he goes back into his space really quickly, and then he flicks to one side, whichever way, and go both ways. Watch that in all the videos. He does the same thing. He backs away from the space and then goes straight back into it, then turns away. But he's all doing it within his own internal space. Does that make sense? Like he's got his own space and he turns away. And everyone goes, oh, St. Gazzola, he's really good. He keeps the ball. But all he's done is use the space he's created. He knows what's there. He's just left it. And Smith Rowe does that as well. And I love the way he makes, by going wide either side. He forces Martinelli inside. He forces Saka inside. And he's putting players into areas of strength. Then he takes their role and he said, I'll stand out here. You go inside. Let's just swap over. But he's really plays a level. I think Paul mentioned he plays a level of humility. And he's not playing for himself. He's playing for the team. And I don't care what the number is. I'm against this number 10 thing. But I do like, we used to have Rosicky, Kleb, Fabregas. They were probably all 10s. But I just call them intelligent attacking mids. You see what I mean? And
right.
We haven't had this. I believe this. We have behind the ball players and ahead of the ball players. And the head of the ball players in your interior need to be intelligent. And what we've seen with Saka and Smith Rowe in particular, and Martinelli as well in a different way, is a level of intelligence and selfless running to help other people out. And we've looked at this team for a while now. And Elliot, you sent us pass maps. And what do we see in those pass maps? Massive disconnects all over the place. And whatever the number are on these three guys' shirts, the connections is back. And now I'm back on StatZone. Now I'm back looking at apps. Now I'm looking at the combinations. Now I'm looking at relationships. Now that's where I am now in my mind, thinking forward. And so, yeah, I really have really liked this player. I am conscious of what I call first 11 syndrome. We all tend to do. We pick our first 11s. Aubameyang's not quite in it at the moment. And my mind goes the other way. I then look at the people on the bench and say, okay, how can you get into this group? Because we're going to need them. Yeah. We're going to need Pepe. We're going to need Maitland-Niles because Tierney can't keep going forever. We're going to need these players to come in. We're going to need Joe Willock. How are they going to develop partnerships with these guys or whoever's in the team? Because that's what we should be looking for now. Because at the weekend we could be using a number of those players because this can't continue with this group. It just can't physically.
I do worry. I mean, it's so hard, and I feel for Arteta here, right? He's finally got the team playing a bit and doing some of the things you'd like to see and getting a response, and most importantly, getting a result by hook or by crook. And it's going to be so tempting to just say, I don't want to do anything to stop this run. But these are young players. They are players you're putting a lot of minutes into, two of them with real injury concerns in terms of Martinelli and Smith Rowe, who's just had, an injury-plagued young career. So he's got to be so careful. But my goodness, who would want to be Arteta when he picks Willian to start and we drop points? You know what I mean? So I just, and not to say that we would 100% drop points if he picks Willian, but I understand who would want to be a manager. But, when you sit in the big chair, you have to make hard choices. And Clive, he's going to have to make some changes. He's going to have to rotate a bit.
Going to have to. Kieran Tierney, we lost him for a year nearly, didn't we?
Yeah.
And he's playing, I heard Dom talk about it on the stats podcast. He's absolutely right. I mean, I watched the Scotland games in the international break and he played 120 minutes. He played all three games. He played extra time one of those games. And he doesn't play quiet. He plays hard. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And because Collar was obviously going, he played a lot of minutes in the Europa League and he played those games as well. He'd done all those journeys. And he had a lot of pelvic and groin type injuries, which are really hard to shake. And we spent a lot of time waiting for him. He's got to step out soon. He has to. And we've got to. This is why my eyes are looking at other players, not because they're better. Just I'll be interested to see how they're going to develop new relationships because we're gonna need them, mate. Particularly at the weekend where we're playing a manly West Brom team, shall we say?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, the underlyings on West Brom are pretty bad. They've been playing pretty badly from what I understand. They've kind of gotten away with it a little bit until, wasn't it Leeds that just beat them 5-0 or something like that? So, I mean, I don't think we should go into that with fear. But ironically, I think it's a game where maybe you can get away without a Smith Rowe, for example, because they're going to sit so damn deep is my guess. That you shouldn't have a lot of difficulty getting the ball into the final third. Breaking down deep defenses is hard. We haven't been good at it. Not a lot of people are good at it. It's really hard. We've seen a lot of weird results this season, and teams are struggling to break down low blocks. And we have struggled in particular. And I'm not trying to take all the blame off us because I think we've been putrid at times, but that's a hard thing for anyone to do. Tim talks about that a lot, and I think it's important to keep that in perspective. Paul, just quickly on the way we finished the game, we did sit back a bit. I still think that, and I get it, we're not a team that's hugely confident at the moment that wants to go play and batter teams. So I understand wanting to defend a lead. I still think we can get the balance right a little bit more. Like, you've got a lead, they've got to come at you, so you can play on the counter a bit. But I don't feel like we necessarily play on the counter a bit. I feel like we just sort of batten down the hatches more, which I still think that balance can be right. I mean, there was the one moment where Bellerin got the ball and he burst up the pitch and beat like a bunch of men and carried it all the way to the edge of the final third, all the way to the box, and literally no one made a supporting run. No one. He had no one to give it to. He just had to start heading towards the corner. And that wasn't in the 91st minute either. It was a little disappointing. And I just felt that, once again, I think we haven't had a lot of leads to play with, to be fair. So we haven't had a lot of practice at it. But do you share my concern that maybe we can strike a slightly better balance between playing on the counter versus what I think we're doing, which is more just really betting in and sitting very deep? Because I thought we invited a bit too much pressure on ourselves again in terms of the amount of access they had to the penalty area. Because you know what's funny? And I know this is what I do with my questions. I ask it, then I keep going, but I'm going to do it one more time. Paul, this was a Brighton team that could not hurt us early in this game for the most part. They really struggled to progress the ball into our final third, in our half. They really struggled to create danger. Now, some of that was by design. They weren't really trying to. But I think we made the hard part, progressing the ball into our final third into our box, the hard part, easier in that last period. And I don't know that we always want to do that against weak teams because they're not necessarily very good at it if you challenge them. So how would you approach a period like that? And are you mostly fine with what we've been doing?
So does it concern me? No. Do I agree with you? Yes.
Okay.
It's like you can tolerate a much longer list of concerns than me. I'm let's worry about the big 1, 2, and 3. And the big one at the moment is, can we create anything? Can we attack? Can we get excited? I just have the second half running in the background here with Brighton. And there's Aubameyang. You know that moment where he cuts off one of their players, runs across him as he's covering back, and then, I don't know if you remember that, but he kind of body checks a guy, which is not an Aubameyang move, right? He's normally protecting that body of his, but he bodies that guy, cuts in front of him, chops him off, runs basically the length of the pitch to cover back. I mean, his whole body language in the second half, this is before we've got our goal, and we're chasing it, and he's enjoying his football. So what do I worry about? First, I worry about, can we keep that going? Because everything else flows from that, right? It's very hard to defend 0-0s or to, a 1-0 when you didn't really earn it and you're not really playing and you expect to get beaten and stuff. And these young kids come in and they don't give a fuck. It's like an FA Cup final to them, right? Saka's been here for a while and managed not to be tainted by the malaise, the ennui of our team. But Martinelli and Smith Rowe are back in. What had Smith Rowe had one game before for the first 11, or one start maybe, or something, just paltry minutes over the years, and he gets that shirt on him. He doesn't bloody care. He has no concept of losing, no concept of being in a team with a funk, and that energy, has somewhat transformed, at least for the time being, our attacking plane. So what's my concern at night? What keeps me awake? Actually, very little, apart from if I keep off a WhatsApp chat with you. But like my concern would be that this little flame, you have a candle and it's a bit blowy in your mansion and you got your hands around it in case it goes out because you got no matches left. We have this little flame of attacking football playing into the final. That's like everything else will flow from that. You can build confidence. Like how much planning do we do for hanging on for the last 20 minutes at this point? Our mindset's trying to get our game going. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to express some actual football, and from that you can hang the other things. So yeah, I mean, you're right in what you see there. I don't know, and it becomes a concern as we go forward, as we start playing football more often and we have more to protect. Then we haven't been very sophisticated in how we've played our last 20 minutes. We've had games where we literally collapsed into the box, and
this wasn't that.
A bunch.
Yeah,
this wasn't that.
No,
no. I'd like to say a quick bit on Smith Rowe, which is having gone through his various touches over the last 2 games, messing around with video and stuff. Wait, you
did a video?
Away.
I hadn't heard anything about it.
Yeah. Really? I'll send you the link.
Awesome.
I've one-on-one sent the link to literally everybody on Arsenal Twitter. I do. I'm very much a guerrilla marketing kind of guy. But anyway, having gone through all those clips, like every one of his touch, almost, there's a slight exaggeration, but fuck it, is good. It's clever, it's quick, his decision making, his scanning. I think I underestimated how good he was doing on this shit. I think he might be really, really good. I then went back, he had 13 starts for Huddersfield, I think it was. Because I went back and I saw somebody asked me if there was a highlights video of him at Huddersfield, because I'd watched quite a bit of him there, and I went back and had a look at it. Yeah, he had 13 starts, 1,100 minutes. His highlight reel for Huddersfield. Now, I know you shouldn't get carried away about highlights reels, because everybody has a good highlights reels.
Not everybody.
Not everybody. But like, that it's that thing where you plonk some document on somebody's table and they're impressed by the fact it's a foot high, whatever's in it. His highlights reel is like 9 minutes of him doing the kind of shit we saw in the last 2 games. It's not a one-off, right? It's not a 2-off. He does those quick turns, runs, passes, 1-2s, streak up the pitch. That's basically all he does, and it's brilliant. And the one other quick thought is I would want him against West Brom with a low block, because you'd want a Ramsey, because he's clever and he'll get into the box, and in very tight spaces he'll do a 1-2 and set somebody off.
It's funny, I was going to say that's why I think it's a game Willock could play too, just because it's more in that Europa League mold of where he can get closer to the box.
Willock doesn't have that, but it's not the getting close to the box part. Like, it's not the progressing from. He can do in tight spaces what almost nobody in our team can.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
He's in a phone box. He's not Cazorla level, but he's in a phone. In terms of the 1-2, it's him and Saka probably who can do that tight space stuff.
Then you make an interesting point. I think this is why you have to be so thoughtful about squad building, and why it is something that you really need a very thoughtful, intelligent, experienced person in the club, a team of people watching it, because this is the issue. You get a Smith Rowe who comes in and dazzles you, and you see the level of talent, and you say that's Premier League, top of the Premier League level talent. And you have a guy like Joe Willock, who's perfectly nice, but probably isn't top of the Premier League level talent. And they kind of want to occupy same positions in the squad. And then you've got a couple other players who occupy those positions. Suddenly you're saying you can't always keep them all. You have to start thinking about moving moving Nketiah on to make room for Balogun, moving Willock on to make room for Smith Rowe, because when these guys are banging down the door, if you don't let them through, they're going to leave. And you're going to wind up keeping the guy who's less good and losing the guy who you really needed. And so this has to be a thoughtful process. Paul, it sounds like you were still not finished with your
I was, but you hit another thought, which I'll say quickly. A couple of weeks ago, I said, Smith Rowe, I mean, he wasn't available to us and injuries, but Smith Rowe is the guy you wanted playing those 44 appearances last year instead of Willock. And I think Willock's good, but he needs to add something to his game. Smith Rowe has it.
But Paul, like
the thing that Willock needs to add.
Your point isn't wrong. It's just this is what I'm saying. This isn't me saying Willock bad, get rid of him, sell it, fuck off. This is me saying there's a guy who's probably better, who's 20 years old. And at some point you have to create paths for the better younger guys. It's we moved Iwobi was a fine player, but if Iwobi was still at the club, Saka wouldn't have broken through. It takes thoughtfully moving on players to make room for other players, and that is something that we have to think of. Let's start to wrap this up though. And Clive, we could talk about Pablo Mari's performance, which I thought was a credit to him, and maybe there's more there than I've given credit to. We could get to the fullbacks.
There is.
There isn't. But, I'm saying it to try to sound magnanimous, even though I don't believe it. But setting that aside, my faux humility, look at the table and try to make any sense of it. It is very hard for me to think of a team that's on 14 points after 14 games having aspirations to finish in a European spot but then after 16 games on 20 points, you're 6 points behind Chelsea in sixth place. Now, granted, there's Tottenham on 26 with 15 played. There's Man City on 26 with 14 played. COVID is playing havoc with the calendar a little bit. Villa on 26 with 14 played. Everton on 29 with 15 played. So, but the point is the table is compressed and messy and weird, and there's points to be dropped by teams and points to be gained by teams. So, in your view, as we continue this sort of soft run, we now have West Brom, we now have Palace, Newcastle. Yeah, right? West Brom, Newcastle, and Palace, then Southampton. Yep. What is realistic to start to target? Are there targets up the table that Arsenal can and should be starting to think about now? Or is this really just baby steps, crawl, walk, run, next game only? I mean, I know that's the cliche, but us as fans, can we start to turn our sights back to resurrecting this league season into something that has possible rewards for us at the end of it?
I think the most important thing is we've refound a bit of ourselves. I think that's the most important thing, because now we're looking like, a little bit more like an Arsenal team. We know we got problems. We know we got a lumpy squad. We know we got a few people there that shouldn't be there. We know we got a few people we know are going. We know we got some people a year to go in the summer that are not being spoken to. And so what this period has really revealed to us is maybe the size of the project. It's darkly revealed that to us, which made us question, have we got the right people in charge for this size of a job? It really has, and to see Kolasinac go today, nothing against him, as you quite rightly said, Elliot, but it's a sign that Arsenal are absolutely tuned into the size of the job.
Oh, it's encouraging, isn't it? After not being able to get loans done in 3 months this summer, and complaints that the bandwidth was stretched and we couldn't make deals done, getting a loan done before the window even opens is a hell of a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a strange one. I don't think we could get all we need to get done in the summer, which is obvious. But the summer wasn't really the summer, was it? It was October, wasn't it? October 17th, and that's when the window ended. And here we are on the 31st of January, and it's open again. So there may have been a lackadaisical attitude that, it's only 6 weeks, couple of months, whatever it is, we're back again, But obviously we saw the impact to the squad when we're losing with a lumpy squad and people feeling disenfranchised. And we saw the potential, we don't know, but we have got good guesses, potential impact to team spirit and splits and dressing room, and all these things come into our minds when we lose games, right? Was it Joe Davis? Who's the LA Raiders guy that says, just win, baby, just win? And it really does mean Al Davis, something. Yep. Mm-hmm. Al Davis, thank you, mate. And I've always kept that in my mind, just win. Just win, and everything looks good. The culture looks good. The back room looks good. When they start making moves, they look good. It's amazing how results orientated we are. It's amazing how much recency we all have in our analysis. I mean, Joe Willock's probably been our Europa League player of the year so far. And now we're thinking we're concerned about him. I think when I was a bit younger, I used to know a lot of footballers, and I sat down with a Premier League footballer, and I sat down and he just scored a hat-trick. And all people coming up to him in the bar, and he was like, really cool. And I was buzzing for him. Oh, this is brilliant. Oh, he's so excited at you. And he said, Clive, I'm not going to get excited. Because as soon as I miss a couple of chances, so I'm dropped for a couple of weeks, they'll all forget me really quickly. And that really bothered me, that did. So now we're not talking about Pepe at all. We're not talking about Willock at all. We're not talking about Aubameyang. We've just completely dismissed them. We forget people so quickly, people that can contribute. And it's a good thing that we have these players coming in, because they're going to force these joggers who've been maybe taking it for granted. They can't do that anymore. They've got to turn up. It's a good thing that we've got some new depth in our squad, because now we've got Smith Rowe in the squad. And Danny Ceballos, mate, you're going to be off. You can't stand in this way anymore, because we've got a young kid's been in our club for 10 years. You've got to go. We don't own you. You've got to go. William, I'm not sure about you. You're going to go. And this is good that we've got players forcing their way in. I think it's been a real lesson to me. I know for certain, to me, as you analyse, you're trying to distance yourself a little bit from the emotion of it all. When you go through a series like this, of the worst results I can ever remember, you can't help but go through the pain. You can't help but go through the emotion. And I think it's really something for all of us to think about, really, the analysis when it comes to results, and trying to disconnect ourselves from that and still see the job in hand. And I've got to try to get better at it. And it's hard, man. It's hard sometimes when you love something like this. But it is important that we do that as a group, not just us, everybody. We tend to go a certain place when we're under stress. And why do we expect the players not to do the same?
Yeah.
So I think it's been a really revealing, interesting period, the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks. And I'm just so hopeful that the corner's been turned.
Yeah, I mean, the hard thing, right, is that you want a corner to be turned. We all want a corner to be turned because we love this club, and it has been giving us a severe amount of odds over the past several months. And so, 2 important results, 2 results that change the face of the season. The team has to confirm these results with performances and results in the next few games that show that what we are seeing is genuine, and determines that this is signal, not noise. And I think that we have a real opportunity to do that. And it's why I sort of feel for Arteta in a way, because trying to rotate the squad at a time when you really want to confirm this run and confirm this rebirth of the team is going to take a lot of character. Let's not forget, the Europa League knockouts are a way to get into the Champions League. It's going to be very, very hard this year because, first of all, we've drawn a good team in Benfica, and second of all, there's a lot of good teams left in the Europa League, and I wouldn't give us a lot of chance to do it, but it is a chance. And, that's going to put extra pressure, extra strain on the squad. And I think what's hard, in a way, what's ironic, you guys, if we were still sitting 16th come February, 15th, you're not too worried about relegation, but you could say, that's it. The whole season of the Europa League now, we are not focused at all on the Premier League. The good players play the Europa League. But what if we do confirm this run and we get 3 wins from the next 4? And suddenly we're sitting, God forbid, 3 points off a Europa League spot in the league. And you're saying, who knows what the sky's the limit is with this weird, wacky season and the way the results are going. Now suddenly he does have to balance European football in the league again. And that's that much harder. So the irony is, by winning, he's going to make the selection headache greater as we get into February and beyond. So we'll see how that plays out, but I would certainly welcome that. I'll finish with this, Paul, simply that in a way, I mean, Saka was sort of man of the match against Chelsea, so I don't want to disparage him, dismiss him, but the most exciting thing for me here is the impending return of Partey, because I would say that this run of a couple of games where we've played okay and won has come in spite of the midfield, not necessarily because of it. Now you can turn around and say, Elliot, how can you say Saka is man of the match for Chelsea and then say it's in spite of the midfield? Well, I mean, he scores a worldy free kick and he has a beautiful pass that sets up a goal. And so, yes, that's huge. But in general, I think the midfield has still been a weakness. Certainly Elneny has been a weakness, and I think Xhaka has done fine, but we're sort of building play and playing well through the brilliance of Saka, Martinelli, and ESR with a little bit of help from the midfield. And then I think our weaknesses running back towards our goal have still been apparent. So I guess what I would ask you, Paul, is like, both in terms of the window and in terms of the return of Partey, is that so important for us right now? Because I think if I want to point to reasons why I wouldn't necessarily trust this run we're on, this little mini run, it would be because I still think the midfield has been a deficiency. But with Partey coming back and a window opening and links to like a Julian Brandt, for example, you know, it could suddenly go from liability to strength. Is that really the next thing that has to happen for us to start playing even better football and sort of confirm this run?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Xhaka was mostly great against Chelsea. He was kind of plodding in this game, and that's the nature of the different opponents, the different
Well, can I
dynamics
say
of the
one thing,
games.
Paul? Too, just this isn't a criticism of Xhaka so much as like we know who that player is. He's not really changing at this point, right? So like he'll have some good games, some bad, but I don't think any of us would say Xhaka's a strength in our squad at this point. You know?
No, he's not. Well, he has games that suit him, and most of the time he's okay. But this is Arsenal. You go like, how do you break down a low block team? Probably by putting Cesc Fabregas in the middle of your midfield, right? You need somebody who's going to do something a bit different at Arsenal. And that's not going to be Granit Xhaka. If the game's a little more open, he can spray it around. He still has, it turns out, a wand of a left foot. But what he doesn't have in the game against a Brighton, especially in the first half, I'm not sure he came to the fore in the second half, but he could have, because the game opened up a little bit. It just not the way it played out for him. In the first half, it was stodgy. We were stodgy. They were in this low block. West Brom could be the same. He's not perfect for those games at all. Partey, much preferred to see him in the lineup in general, and certainly against a West Brom. But you need those. It doesn't have to be Xhaka, but you need a couple of jokers in the pack, midfield wides. And I think Smith Rowe can absolutely be one of those. We need another one in the window if we can get another attacking option, because we need options, slightly different types of players. I actually have but it would take minutes away from Smith Rowe, which is a great thing to have because it means Smith Rowe is doing really well right now. But it's bullshit, right? You need those options. You need slightly different types of players. We've had these weird jigsaw pieces for our midfield for a long time. It's just very hard to find any two players who can act as your two pivots who work. Partey is one of them. I'd love to get somebody like Bissouma, ironically, in the spotlight. Probably too many people are talking about him right now for him to be cheap, and Brighton wouldn't let him go. But I don't want another DMCM type in this window, but we could probably use one. We just absolutely have to get an attacking mid, unless we're all convinced that Smith Rowe can play at this level and above every game for the rest of the season, and that would be nuts. So we need something additional, like an Awar type, if we can get that. Won't be Awar. That's done as far as I'm concerned. So it's an important window if they can find somebody. Obviously, the talks around Isco, it'd be another one of those loans from Spain in January that have worked so well for us. So I don't know if that answers the question, but we don't. Xhaka's okay in most games. He's great in some. He has the red mist in others every 10th game or so. That's Xhaka.
Yeah, look, I'm inclined to want to pick a fight with you about Xhaka, but it's the end of the year. It's the end of the pod, and I'm not going to do it. So, Clive, I will just finish by letting you get a...
Did I say something contentious there?
Yeah, just any comment you make that claims that Xhaka's not bad bothers me, but that's just me.
You kind of said he wasn't bad.
He was a man of the match against Chelsea. He was. I just.
But he also said he wasn't bad generally.
He's not a bad... You know what it is? This is the thing that I think bothers me a little bit, is that like we are so hungry for redemption arcs for our players and to like our players that even after years of seeing who they are and knowing their flaws and their strengths, we still sort of want to see something there. I guess what I'm saying is Granit Xhaka is not a terrible player.
My praise of him wasn't exactly overflowing.
No, it was. That's fair. Okay, well let's not do it. Let's just move on because we're sort of in a good same place here, and I feel like we should not test that. Clive, I'll let you just get a final word before we say goodbye. I mean, the window is a chance for us to strengthen the midfield. I've gone on record saying I don't know that I trust the Edu Arteta team to recruit properly, but I mean, I think I have to accept that they're not going to just do nothing in January, or at least I doubt it, which is an ironic twist from the years when we used to say we'd be surprised if they did do anything. But the return of Thomas Partey, I mean, I think that could take this little silver lining shoot of recovery and really confirm it and really make it more obvious and more durable, because I think the fragility with this recovery is that the midfield is kind of getting it done. And I mean, even if you want to say Shaq has been fine, I don't think Elneny has at all. So like, is the return of Partey for you going to be potentially the oil in this engine now?
Yeah, we need one or two more, as Paul alluded to. And I looked at the stats for the Chelsea game. I think Saka passed to Murray about 3 times in Chelsea game. It's 10 times in the Brighton game. Mm-hmm. You look at Elneny, I think it's 4 times to Holding. It's 14 times to Holding in the Brighton game. And this is the sort of stuff that we can't allow them to do. Someone needs to shout on the pitch and say, "Oi, get it forward." Seriously, it's just we fall into this play, and I just think they just play the nearest and safest thing. They don't go onto the pitch and say, "We're going to push this car forward." They just play until they get a rocket out their arse and they start playing forward. And as soon as they play forward, everything starts to go. So for me, everything revolves around that centre midfield, and Arteta has shown potentially he's a 4-2-3-1 guy. I'm not sure. If he's a 4-2-3-1 guy, let's get a proper double pivot in place that can get it, win it, drive, carry, win the races, cover fullbacks comfortably. If they go to the 3 in the back line, they can stand in wide spaces, not get run. Let's get proper players that can do that job. We've got a number of young attacking mids. There's 10, 11, 7 types in our academy coming through. So you don't want to overload that space. We can't expect Smith Rowe to play every single game. We can't expect Saka to play every single game. So much like Chelsea, we need another couple in there, really, in my opinion, and a little bit of upgrade up front. And I think then we'll start to see a proper team. We need a right centre back for sure, in my opinion. And we need a young left back to cover for Tierney. And maybe some players going to have to go because you can't keep them all. And potentially, I don't want to say it, but potentially we might need a right back. I'm not sure about all 3 of the right backs we have at the club at the moment, and it's not a priority. If a couple of them stay, that's absolutely fine. But if we're serious, and maybe in phase 2, that needs to change as well, just to take us to a new level, or get a different type of player to compete with Bellerin. Because I'm not sure that Maitland-Niles and Cedric are quite competing in any position.
You're not convinced by Cedric, huh?
I'm not convinced by Cedric. Maitland-Niles.
Get it in there before we say goodbye.
Maitland-Niles is a player that I like the potential of. If with my coach's head on, he's a sort of player. Him and Pepe are the players that I think if I would love to get to their level. Do you know what I mean? They're quite exciting, while being equally frustrating. And I would feel I would have failed if I couldn't get them to play well. They got a lot of good stuff. Do you know what I mean? And so that's why my eyes always go to them. But I also recognise they frustrate the hell out of people, so I'm not going to stick on them at the future of the club. They got work to do. Mm-hmm. They got work to do, and that's similar, much like other players. And other players should not get those positions just because of their names. They should get their positions because of how they play. Bellerin sat down for 2-3 weeks, came back fresh, had a great game against Chelsea, had a dodgy first half against Brighton, recovered really well in the second half. Good. Well done. Keep it going. Don't play well, you come out. And that's how it should be. And we've now got a bit of depth in the squad, but proper quality depth, We're going to force some people to play well. So a lot of work to do, Elliot. But I'm just reading online now that Socrates is potentially going to Turkey or Napoli, and the negotiations should be done in the next couple of days. So Arsenal are moving. The squatters are on their way out, mate. So let's have a look.
Unflushable turds are getting flushed.
They're moving. So maybe that critique of Edu and co, we might have to just swallow that a little bit.
I'll tell you this much.
But we'll see.
When Partey comes back into the team and he gets the ball and he looks up and there's Smith Rowe standing 5 yards ahead of him in space and available, he's going to think he's at a new club because it's all the difference in the world going to make. Can't wait for it. So, well, that'll do it. We'll have tons of window content, not about windows, but about transfers, all throughout January, both here and on the Patreon. So hopefully you will join us one or both places as you see fit. But most importantly of all, fuck off 2020. Get the hell out of here. Never come back. Thankfully, the way time flows, it won't. I am reliably informed. But if you want to watch Tenet and tell me I'm wrong, that'd be fine. Look, we love you. It has been not a pleasure of a year, but the pleasure of the year has been the chance to share these conversations, these discussions, these interactions together through the podcast, through social media and beyond. And I just cannot wait for the opportunity where we have the chance to get together in person, to do more things together. There was a live event planned this year that didn't happen for reasons that should be obvious, not least of which is that I'm not legally allowed to enter the United Kingdom, not because of that thing that happened in the past, but because of the pandemic. So anyway, we just love you and appreciate having you here and hope that you're doing well and have a wonderful 2020. A very happy new year. And Paul, same to you. Paul's on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, likewise to everybody.
Yep. And Clive's on Twitter at Clive PFC. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much. And the same. And thanks to all the listeners for allowing me to go through my process and not give me too much stick. So much appreciated, and happy new year to everybody.
Well said. Well, happy new year, everybody. Goodbye 2020. Hello 2021, and up the Arsenal. We love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, West Brom 0.